So in this video, we're going to talk about what it means to actually describe the slope of a line. Now, last year, you guys primarily worked with linear algebra, linear meaning line. So you should have seen a lot of line graphs and things like that. So when we talk about slope, what we mean is we're trying to describe how steep the line is. And there's two possibilities for slope. You could get a line that looks kind of like in this general direction where it goes from bottom left to top right, and it's kind of increasing. This is a positive slope. The opposite of that would be if it starts and then goes down to the right. That's referred to as a negative slope. Now, you should have done with a lot of things with slope in the last year, but primarily the number one thing that describes slope is referred to as rise over run. Okay, or in other words, we're looking at how much is it changing up and down versus how much is it changing left and right. Now, in the next video, you'll also see that sometimes we use the letter M to represent slope, and sometimes we'll even see this occasionally, where you use like a little triangle symbol. That's referred to as delta. So delta y or delta x, which means the change in y over the change in x. How is it changing with those two components? Up and down on top, left and right on the bottom. Now, the idea is, in this video, I want to give you guys a graph, and I want to know, can you read the slope from the graph? Okay. Now, I know most of you guys are probably using lined notebooks, which is perfectly fine. When you're drawing a graph on lined paper, just try to make sure you draw it as nice as possible. The nicer the graph, the easier it'll be to find the slope. If you have a graph paper notebook, even better. All right. What I usually do when I'm drawing graphs on lined paper is for the up and down, I usually kind of go every halfway mark. Okay. For the left and right, we can kind of just try to evenly space it out. Okay. And if you're using like smaller numbers, usually a 5 by 5 graph is a good starting point. So let's go to 5 in every direction. Okay, and the idea is if I give you a line with points already on there, can you give me the slope? So let's say, for example, let's go ahead and put a point right here. And let's put another point right here. Again, the nicer your graph, the easier it is going to be to draw these points and make your line. Okay, go ahead and draw the line going through those 2 points. And the question here would be like, describe the slope. Now, the first thing we can say automatically is we know that because it's going from bottom left to top right, we could say it's a positive slope, right? But more detailed than that, I want to know like what the actual number value of the slope is. So the way you can determine that is essentially you have to figure out how is it changing from point to point, right? Obviously, there's an up and down component and a left and right component. So what you would do is you would count the spaces of how far you go up and count spaces how far you have to go to the right. Okay, so if we count spaces going from here, so 1, 2, 3, and I'm going up. Okay, up is a positive direction. So I'm going up 3 plus 3. And then you're gonna do the same thing going right. Count spaces again. 1, 2. Right is also a positive direction, so I went right 2. So if I'm asked to describe this slope, I could say that the slope, it's a fraction. Remember, the top number is always going to be your up and down value, and the bottom number is going to be your left and right value. So I went up 3 spaces, and I went right 2 spaces. And that's how you would describe the number value of the slope, is you would just count spaces. All right. Keep in mind, in general, if you're going up, that is a positive direction. versus down is a negative direction. And if you're going right, that's a positive direction. And left is a negative direction. Okay? So all you gotta do is count spaces. The up and down numbers on top of your fraction, and left and right numbers on the bottom of your fraction. If the fraction reduces, you have to reduce it. So be aware of that as well. Okay, let's try another one. This time, it's possible that they don't give you the complete graph. They could just say something like this. Plot 3, 1 and 0, 5 and determine the slope. Now there's multiple ways to do that, but in this video, I'm primarily talking about how do you get the slope from the graph. So we have to draw a graph, plot these 2 points, and then we do the same process. Okay, so again, go ahead and draw as nice of a graph as you can, probably 5 in every direction. Okay, and when you're plotting points, that first number is your x value, so that's your left and right values. And then the second one is your y component, which is your up and down. Okay, so for the first point, 3, 1, I'm going right 3 spaces and up 1. So it'd be about here. So again, from the center, I went right 3 and up 1. Second point is 0, 5, which means I'm not going left, right at all, but I'm going up 5 spots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's on the line. And you only need two points to make a line. So from there, draw the best line you can. Okay? And then now we can actually count the spaces. So then we're trying to go from point to point. So for this one, we can go right and then down. And then we're counting spaces, right? So 1, 2, 3. I went right 3. And again, right is a positive direction. So I went right 3. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. I went down 4. But in this case, down is a negative direction. So I went down 4. So our slope, it's going to be a fraction. And even though we went right and then down, that's not going to make a difference, right? The slope is always up and down on top, left and right on bottom. So our slope is going to be negative 4 over 3. Again, make sure that if the fraction reduces, make sure you reduce it. In this case, it doesn't. So that would be our answer. All right. Let's try. I'll put one more on the screen for you to try on your own, and then that'll be the end of the video. All right. Okay. So I want you to try plot -2, -3, and 2, 4. Then determine the slope. So again, make sure you guys draw as nice of a graph as you can. Try to make sure it's nicely evenly spaced out. Okay. And then go ahead and pause the video, try it. Don't be afraid to get it wrong. And then you can always press play when you're done and check your answer.